This Week in 40K.
Welcome to This Week in 40K for the new year of 2023. I'm intending to write that wrong many, many times before I start writing it correctly. Billy, how the heck are you?
I am doing very well. I will do the same. I'm trying in my head right now to figure out if 2023 feels more like the future than 2022. I think the entire 2020s just feel like the future.
2023 is where that Zardoz Sean Connery picture is from. Which has been making a round on the internet of this is what we have to wear now.
Oh, interesting.
If you don't know what I'm referencing, that's fine.
Yeah. Is it? This is one of the few times where it's actually safe to Google something on the internet.
Zardoz Sean Connery. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
He's got a pretty fantastic leather singlet, I guess.
Moving forward, maybe a generation or two, if people know what Borat's neon swimsuit looks like, there's a lot of inspiration there.
Okay. All right. Well, we have no news.
Yeah, for 40K is taking some time off.
Yes. If you guys thought we didn't have a lot of news last week, boy, have we got news for you. There's even less this week.
Well, last week actually was a lot of news. Like within the space of 40K, there was a lot of 40K news to talk about, just not a lot of games to talk about. This week, I came up with a new Oathway list that actually, based on the new detachment system, has me feeling excited, but you know.
I noticed that you have a large number of black, gold, and white balloons behind you. I can only presume that you were excited about the Saints' victory over the Eagles yesterday and have acquired Saints-specific color balloons to celebrate.
No, these are our New Year's balloons.
Okay.
An entire packet of balloons was blown up by hand. Fortunately, we had one of those little tiny electric blower uppers. But my wife is a big fan of balloons. And so since we were staying in with family for New Year's, there were balloons.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Everything I can say about balloons is inappropriate for the show. There's a bunch of very weird fetishes involving balloons that I could start talking about. But instead...
Sure, that's a place you could go and then swerve away from.
No, I think we'll not go that way.
I said, and then swerve away from.
Yes. It's like there's a squirrel in the road. Mm-hmm. Squirrel. Okay, so I have a top story that's exciting. So we're going to talk about the top story here in a second. And then Billy and I are going to talk about the year in review. I have brought with us a list of codex releases, and we'll talk through how those went throughout the year and how the meta changed and what was powerful at different times. And, honestly, I think it'll be fun. I think that as 40K players, I think that we forget how fast moving it is. Mm-hmm. And I think when I start talking to you about all that happened in 2022 from a competitive mindset, I think some of you are going to be pretty blown away by, if I ask you, here's a fun question. Billy, without looking, how many codexes were released in 2022? Actual codexes, not supplement books.
8.
8, he says. 10 if you count guard.
Okay. That's pretty good Prices Right rules, guess.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Right. That's like averaging a codex almost every month. Like that's a lot. That's really a lot of new. Wow. That's really crazy. So we'll go through that. And then we'll talk about our favorites and least favorite things of that meta year.
Okay.
And that'll be our show. And if we get done early, we get done early. In about 10 minutes, I'm going to go make sure my children are awake. So everybody has that to look forward to. Mm-hmm. Everybody's back at school today. And I'm back to work today.
As am I.
After a fairly frustrating vacation of continued water problems and the evil money demon coming and stealing my money from me nonstop all vacation. So
true, but you did learn about the fantastic investment opportunities that is Legos.
Yes, I found a whole bunch of Star Wars Legos under the house that I was going to build to amuse myself. And then I looked up how much they cost online and realized that I can't justify building them. It turns out that unopened, old, out of print, unopened Legos are worth a lot. I had no idea.
The closest I came to that was cleaning out the old video games that my parents had been saving since the 80s and realizing that original and Super Nintendo game cartridges, regardless of condition, can be worth actually sell this on eBay levels of money.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I think we're off.
Yep.
By the way, I think I owe you a 49ers piece of clothing.
Mathematically for a couple of weeks, but the season doesn't end until next week. And so we won't start, sending our collection agents for a little bit.
Okay. I was thinking that I could do some 49ers boxers and then I could eat Taco Bell was my kind of thought.
That's fine. I believe there was some stipulation of it being worn on this program.
Yes,
and
that's true.
If you want to show us your boxers live.
Billy went right past the Taco Bell joke. We're moving on to our top story.
Our top story.
I'm in charge of the video transitions, so take that.
This is what happens when we start talking about Colin in his underwear.
That's right.
You know what? I think we're all okay with it.
Nobody wants to see it.
No.
Okay. So I have big news. On Wednesday, which is tomorrow, at 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Central, I will debut a new show on the network called Better Human, Better Gamer. Or Better Gaming? Better Human, Better Gamer. Yeah. This comes from an ongoing segment on Best in Faction called Better Human, Better 40K that received a tremendous amount of support. And when I was dealing with competitive anxiety in the 40K scene, I talked openly about it on Best in Faction, and many people came up to me and talked about how important it was that I was sharing that. I've talked about my mental health pretty openly, and people have really appreciated that as well. So I'm at a point now where I'm miserable. I'm just going to tell you, like, my life is objectively cool. I do a lot of really fantastic things. I have great friends. I have a good job. I have a great house. I've got a good family. But I am frustrated. I'm frustrated with me, not with those situations. I'm frustrated with my weight, my mental health, my productivity, things other than weight. I've always had to struggle with my weight. But the rest of the things that I'm frustrated with aren't things I'm used to dealing with. They're not things that I've been dealing with forever. They're things that are hitting me really hard now. So I'm on a journey to make that better. And on January 1st, I aggressively started harder on that journey. That journey is not one I'm on alone. My friends are going to start this journey as well. Many of us need to get healthier. Danny McDevitt from Grim After Dark, Chuck, Billy, you mentioned that you need to drop some lbs. My friend Chris, just a collection of people that want to be healthier and they want to be better humans, and they know that if they're better humans, they will be better gamers. That's not the reason to be a better human, but it's a nice benefit. Look at the average weight of the people that succeed at 40K.
Mm-hmm.
It is there are exceptions. This is not a hard and fast rule, but if you look, it takes an incredible amount of energy to win at 40K at a top level. I've been to the 6th game that is everything's on the line, and it's really exhausting. And big tournaments are now 9 games. Mm-hmm. So, and in addition to that, the lessons we can learn about being good humans will help us make new friends and get new practice partners and learn 40K better. There's a lot of abilities to connect an effort on health with how that makes us a better gamer as well. So that we don't want to just focus on, hey, I'm going to be a better person. Everyone should do that. That's not very easy to quantify. What I want to talk about is getting more comfortable with ourselves, getting better at the things we want to do, getting better at gaming, getting calmer, getting more successful, getting more organized. These are all things that I think are really important. So The way this is going to work is I think we're going to start with going every other week. And it's my co-host is going to be one of my favorite people on the planet, Chris Modica. Now, many of you haven't met Chris because Chris does not play 40K, because this podcast will not be 40K centric. It will be gamer centric. We'll talk about 40K a lot. There's no way to avoid that. It's a 40K network. Like, we're going to talk about 40K a lot, but I want to talk about competitive video games, and I want to talk about I want to talk about Magic the Gathering, and I want to have people on that have had these struggles that we're having from other games, and talk to them. So Chris is going to join me. Chris is a longtime gamer. I met Chris through raiding in World of Warcraft. He was from a guild called the Browncoats that had stopped kind of being organized. And so he joined my guild, looting, leveling, and smashing, which are Colin's 3 favorite things in any video game. So it was the name of my guild for a really long time. Anyways, Chris was our troll. No, I think he was a Tauren. Tauren shaman healer is what Chris was rocking. Anyways, Chris is a fantastic gamer, but more important than that, Chris is a person who is dealing with his own middle of life struggles that he wants to share, but he's also a deeply interesting and insightful person who's also quite funny. So I think you guys are going to like getting to know Chris. I think you're going to appreciate him as a co-host. Now, the rest of the panel is going to be a rotating set of people. We're going to have Danny McDevitt's going to participate, Chuck, Mitch, Billy, lots of different people. But I also want to have on people who are struggling with autism, people who are struggling with Tourette's, whatever thing you have that's getting in the way of you reaching your goals. We want to talk to those people. I would like to talk to some nutritionists. I'd like to talk to some personal trainers. I'd like to talk to people that actually have great information to share with the 40K community. So if you're feeling like you aren't the healthy person that you want to be, or you're just interested in supporting other people on that journey, I hope that you'll become part of our community. I'm not looking for listeners for this show. I'm looking for a community. We're all going to help each other here. And it's the thing that I'm the most excited about since we launched Best in Tabletop. I don't have time, or I don't have motivation or energy for another show. I just don't. I shouldn't do another show. I'm already not keeping up with my commitments. But I know that if I have to come on a podcast and tell you guys how I'm doing on my journey, I will do better on that journey. And I also know that if I'm open and vulnerable on that journey, that I will make better friends and better connections, and I will also help other people. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to start at 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Central tomorrow night, and then it will be on the podcast feed where you guys will be able to find it. So that's our top story. What do you think, Billy?
2 thoughts spring to my mind. One, while people might not be familiar with Chris personally, they are familiar with him professionally if they're listening to this podcast, because he is the person who produces this podcast and has done all of the gestalt around here that you see. So you know Chris, you just don't know you know him. And 2, what you were saying about forcing yourself to go on a podcast and talk to people, at least for me, external accountability is the key to any self-improvement. I am horrible at internal accountability, but even the smallest bit of external really helps. And yes, I am looking forward to being some part of this journey, largely because I have clothes that don't fit me, and it's the majority of my clothes at this point. Yeah, I have not done anything about it in the first 2 calendar days of the year, and that's going to change today. So there we go.
Okay. I cut out sweets yesterday.
Good for you.
Yeah. And or on Monday, no, Sunday rather, the 1st. Nice. And so I've been now sweetless for 48 hours, which is, I'm a junkie. I eat terrible food. My part of my journey for this is that I don't respond well to diets. A change in diet is different than a diet, right?
Yes.
If I cut out carbs, I've done this many times in my life. If I cut out carbs, I will lose weight very quickly. But I know that I won't keep to that forever. And as soon as I give it up, all the weight will come back. So I'm not going to be talking about that sort of effort. We're not going to be a weight loss. We're not going to be a weight loss fad, right? Especially because if you take health advice from a couple 40K nerds, you don't really know what you're doing. So it's going to be more about our journey than us giving you advice. But I need to make permanent changes. I need to, from now until the day I die, I need to walk my dog more. I need to make better decisions about the frequency of which I eat ice cream. These are just decisions I need to make. And if I make the decisions, I know that I will long-term get to a weight I'm happy with. And that's the gear I'm in. I want to make permanent changes that are the way that I'm going to live my life. And then I want to just give it time to get me to where I want to be. That's how I'm approaching it.
Small, discrete, achievable objectives with rewards built in. It can't all be just pain and punishment. You have to have something that you're aiming for, and we're just trying to build habits.
Yep, that's exactly right. My childhood best friend, Gary, who has never been on the show because he's not a 40K nerd. Gary's about, I don't know, maybe 5'8", and he lost 100 pounds in our 20s. And I remember him talking about, for him at the time, he had to make a daily weighted spreadsheet that did rolling averages, because every day your weight changes, right? It doesn't always go down. And so he was charting it. He's a data nerd. And so he was charting it in all these different ways. And the daily weigh in and the nerding out over the spreadsheet was a huge part of it for him. So it's about, and maybe we'll have him on the show to tell that story.
I think that would be fun. And I'm sure there are people with whom that would resonate that listen to this.
Yeah. Yeah. So Gary was for a long time, Gary was the CEO of a business intelligence software company. So if you want to hear about data and a guy trying to lose weight, anyways, Gary's kept that weight off for 20 years now, I think.
Good for him.
I saw him Sunday for the football game. We actually hadn't hung out since the beginning of COVID because we have families and small children. He's got a baby. Anyways, he came up to watch the football game, and he was telling me about how at 42 years old, he's now a grandmaster at Ultimate Frisbee, because everybody over 40 is a grandmaster at Ultimate Frisbee.
That's fun.
Yeah, they went and won some sort of giant tournament that I don't understand. So that was great. And then I told him about our experience at the LV Las Vegas team tournament, and he didn't understand that either. And then we moved on. Okay, so that's our top story. This is going to be really important to me. This is going to be a really key thing for me. I'm going to need support. I'm not set up well to do this, but it's just a thing I have to do. I am wildly unwilling to die early and leave my wife and kids without me. I am.
It's good motivation.
That is the most important motivation that you can have, and it's hard to remember that that's the motivation. So we'll find additional motivations along the way.
That's the long-term reason. You need those short-term ones.
Yes. My wife might get tired of me. I might have to go back on the market. I'm not prepared for that. There's all types of reasons to get healthy.
I'm not dating again. I would stay single.
Oh, just forever?
For a long time. I'm very happy in my marriage. I don't want to deal with that shit again.
Okay. Also, you wouldn't have a pig anymore, which is like one of the iconic parts of your personality. Maybe you get your own pig, but that seems unlikely.
No.
Too much effort on your own.
Lilu is the one and only pig that will ever be in our lives.
Right.
Yeah.
What's new?
You see me segue like a champ there?
I was just laughing at that transition.
You were just, it was the end of a thought. We were done with that conversation. It was the perfect point to just move on.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So what's new?
The Avatar of Cain is the model of the year, according to votes.
I'm fine
fans.
with that.
I did vote for that. I feel strongly about that. Referencing that Ulthway list I put together,
When did Be'lakor come out? Was he the previous year? Because that Be'lakor model slaps.
Be'lakor is 1 or 2 years old. It was the model of the year when it came out. If you actually go back through, it's like Gazkul was the model of the year last year, and then Be'lakor the year before that. If you go through whatever else we have to say about GW, they make some freaking phenomenal models.
The Avatar is a really dope model.
What?
The Avatar is a really dope model.
Yeah. And since they've really figured out their plastics, like their big plastic kits, those things are a joy to work with. Any of us olds who had to suffer through the resin of Forge World being the pinnacle of big centerpiece models, like the world is in a good place right now. So the Avatar is the model of the year. There was an sort of semi-pre-orderish announcement suggesting that Arc of Omens goes up for pre-order next weekend, which might mean rules. The rules.
No, it's not. They've been very clear. The rules cut off for LVO doesn't matter. They are not doing the new mission book.
Yes, it's just that is all up in the air, but there's a little bit more line of sight to potentially that book coming out in the next week or so. The chatter of the people who get stuff early they have not been doing their "ooh, I know things" kind of running dance, but maybe I just haven't been paying as close attention.
Well, things are getting leaked aggressively at our faces. There's leaks happening pretty aggressively. I don't know how true they all are, but there sure is a lot of them.
Yeah. The game is just going to fundamentally change. And for anyone who hasn't, whose fun is building lists, just use current points. Keep yourself under 2,000. Just look at what you can do in the new detachment structure. It is an interesting thought experiment and fun.
Okay. Yeah. LVO is still very up in the air.
Yeah.
If you think you know what the meta at LVO is going to be like, you are wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not new munition pack, supposedly. Is it data slate? Is it points? Points and data slate make some really funny things happen. I've heard this from so many people, it has to be real, but Armor of Contempt going away is matched with aggressive points discounts for Space Marines. So if you had data slate and you had new points, you'd have Marines that are significantly cheaper and still have Armor of Contempt, and that would be a real problem. So I'm really interested. Are they going to do nothing new? It sounds like they're not interested in doing all new. So I'm really interested in this. Like, what is LVO's meta actually going to be? And remember, no matter what it is, Colin is having streaming from his home, and his rules will be all of the new stuff. My competing stream that will wreck the thousands of people that watch. No, not at all. We're just going to make some content for fun. We're not trying to compete with LVO.
Yeah.
All right. So that's what's new.
That's what's new.
All right. Great. Look over the next week. Look for all the shows on Best in Tabletop to get rolling on their normal schedules again. All right.
What's winning?
I don't know what else to use for our activity here.
I was going to say, time with family is what's winning over the last 2 weeks.
That's true.
Yeah. There was one 32-person event in Budapest, Hungary, and we're sorry. We'll cover you next week.
Yep. In the year of our Lord, 2022, in the month of January, we had our first Codex release of the year, Adeptus Custodes. And they were wildly broken, and they did not come out in time for LVO. So LVO happened without them. LVO was won at the beginning of the year by Richard Sigler. He last minute decided to go to LVO, as one does. Took AdMech, which no one had suspected was a top tier army still, because it had come out in May of 21 and it had been nerfed already. But Richard Sigler's like, no, I'm a highly efficient 40k murdering robot, and I shall destroy all of you. And he destroyed all of them. You know what? It must have been the new Custodes book. I think it was, because remember the finals were Richard Sigler against Matt Loris playing Custodes.
Yes. And didn't GSC come out the same day as Custodes?
I don't think that's true, because GSC wasn't at LVO. So I'm not sure. But Adeptus Custodes came out in January. So if you're wondering how quickly is 40K moving, how long ago does it feel like the Custodes book came out? Because it does not feel like it was this year. It was 2022 to me.
Yeah, it was an early part of the year book. It was such a bad book that it needed points drops before it came out.
Clearly. Right, which was that was a disaster. Basically, some playtesters complained that it wasn't good, but it was just that specific things weren't good, and then there were point reductions, and it just became a mess.
Yes.
So then the Gene Stealer Cult book came out. Now, I have a different opinion than most people about the Gene Stealer Cult book. I think that it was bonkers cool from day one. I think that it has always been good, but it was simply nowhere near as powerful as that ridiculous Custodes release that happened at nearly the same time. And then immediately after Gene Stealer Cult came out, like days after, well, in February, we had Tau. And so when I started using the GSC book, I had all of my practice games for the first 8 games were against Tau and Custodes, because that's all my friends wanted to play. Both of those books were wildly not okay, and both of them were way better than Gene Stealer Cult. And also, Gene Stealer Cult was a much harder to solve book than those books were. What's that, Billy?
Yeah. Well, and Tau and Custodes from different angles present unsolvable problems for GSC.
Yeah, with Custodes, it's like, oh, I charged everything, and I'm fighting first everywhere. Oh, I killed no Custodes, and my entire army died.
Yeah.
That's too bad. Because that was peak broken Custodes and peak broken Tau.
Yeah. So the Tau would just be, oh, there are no Gene Stealer Cult left. Right. We still have half of our army to shoot. Darn.
Yep. So we were in February, and we had a wildly not okay Tau book and a wildly okay Custodes book, and no one talking about Gene Stealer Cult. That's what happened then. We moved on to March, and the Tau book and the Custodes book went, oh, damn, that's the Elf book. And the Elf book came out to, again, way too powerful. Now, if you say, of course the new codexes are way too powerful, they make people buy models, please do not listen to that. If they did that, then the new models that they come up with, the new sculpts, would always be the most broken thing in the game, and that's almost never the case. Well, they release new models all the time that don't make it into competitive lists.
But Colin, aren't you running your 30 new plastic Dark Reapers in Morgan Raw?
Very much not. Really bad timing for them to release new models. That's a wonderful example.
Yeah.
The quadruple nerfed Dark Reapers got new models when no one had any intention of playing with them.
And everyone already had all of the Dark Reapers they ever needed.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
Yeah.
So the Eldari book came out. Harlequins immediately wrecking people. Just from the moment go, Harlequins were way crazy. They were, before nerfing, they were extremely violent and extremely hard to kill, which was not a good combo for the rest of the game.
Yeah, the challenge in putting together a Harlequins list was flipping far enough into the back of the book and looking at the Voidweaver data slate, and then looking at the points of the Voidweaver data slate and believing there wasn't a typo. Many people didn't think it had all of its guns because there's no way that much stuff was on that model for that few points. And then Adepticon had, boy, the fastest anyone could viably hobby up 9 Voidweavers as a mirror match. There's a great picture of some pink boats, just oy vey.
Okay, so Harlequins came out. And then the other thing that happened from that book at the same time is Hail of Doom. Which mathematically leaf blowered almost everyone.
Yeah,
it was just wildly not okay. You were able to take it with ignore cover, so people were getting an extra what felt like an extra AP in a lot of situations, and it just wrecked. So many dice auto wounding on 6s was just a really good way to deal with people. So that was also a problem. So just to recap, it's now March of 2022, and we have a broken Custodes book, a broken Tau book and a broken Elf book and a Gene Steel Occult book that's really just lost and doesn't know what to do in what's happening. I couldn't find an easy way to track nerfs over time. So we kind of have to wing that a little bit. I'm sorry to say, but my memory is that Tau and Custodes got nerfed around the time that the Eldar book entered the meta. Because maybe not Tau, but Custodes for sure, because I don't remember them being that dominant when the Eldar book started getting all the wins that it got.
I think they undid some points nerfs, and also the Eldar just had the tools to kill Custodes.
Right. They really did. Okay. So that was, okay, so now it's March. We move into April. And April is where things get crazy. April is when the Tyranid Codex comes out. And the Tyranid Codex is, in my opinion, the most broken codex of the time I've been playing 40K. And the reason, this time around playing 40K.
No, yeah.
The book was an entire book of underpriced data sheets with incredibly powerful rules that didn't allow for your opponent to do anything about it. Oh, I've got my Flyrant hanging out with my bodyguards. Okay, he's going to come over. He's going to go a million miles. He's going to kill you, and he's going to fly home, or he's going to leave the table.
Yeah.
Or he's going to run away, and the Raveners that came in are going to kill you and then leave the table. And then all psychic powers were cast from out of range of you to 9, just period.
Maleceptors doing 30 mortal.
And Maleceptors were just vomiting mortals on you.
Yeah.
It was wildly not okay. Yeah. And the only way that I could figure out to deal with it was to take Fire Prisms, which is where my Fire Prism list came from. Is that I wanted to shoot giant weaponry that ignores invols at Maleceptors. That's what I was originally excited about. So the Tyranid book has been nerfed a lot over the past 8 months, 7 months. Yeah. And in that time, it never stopped winning.
Yeah.
Harlequins as well. Both Craft World Eldar got nerfed and then kind of fell out of being a top tier army. But Harlequins and Tyranids got nerfed over and over again and never stopped being S tier. They never fell out of the top win rates of the game. And that's not great. But we're getting massive changes this month. And I believe that both Harlequins and Tyranids will regret their choices.
They had their wonderful time to shine. You got to play with your toys, play with some different toys.
Right. Okay, so after Tyranids came out, it's now May of 2022, and we've got Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights.
Right.
These books, what?
I'm forgetting that books were released, but yes, I'm remembering now.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, Mish says Custodes lost OBSEC, Tau got Tau AP nerf and points increase. Yeah. Okay, that sounds right. So then we had, now this is just a crazy year because all of these books are too good. Like all of them. So now we've moved into the Knights books, and I think the Knights books were actually too good. I think Chaos Knights in particular, running a ton of baby Knights was really difficult for other people to deal with. These books were very polarizing though, because inherently you can build a list that deals with a Knight list easier than you can build a list to deal with the cancer that Tyranids were throwing at you. Yeah. So while Knights came out and they were really, really good, they weren't the same level of top tier that Eldar and Nids were before the Eldar nerfs, before the Harlequin nerfs. Yeah. I guess Harlequins never really got nerfed out of viability, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. Knight, I'm going to slightly disagree. I think Knights were an acceptable 10 out of 10 on the power curve. And to your point of, it's an inherent thing of Knights that even an acceptable level of power curve might lead to bad play experiences because of the polarization. So many of their games are just won or lost at the list building phase, and that removes a lot of agency at the table from people.
My hatred of Knights and belief that they should not be in the game, I believe, is well documented.
Yeah.
So I agree entirely. I don't think that book was as broken as the Tyranid book or the Eldari book at launch.
No. Or even the Tau book.
Right. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So, again, We are talking about May.
Yeah.
We are talking about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. Okay, so these are books that feel like they've been out for 35 years, but they have not been. Next up is July of 2022. So June of 2022 is when Charity Hammer happened. And that's easy to remember because right before Charity Hammer, we got new points, we got a new data slate, and we got updated facts. And we got nerfs for Tyranids. So we got a ridiculous amount of stuff, and that transitioned us out of what I thought of as 9th edition and into what I've thought of as 9.5. Because the game changed drastically. And the big change that people may not remember is going into Charity Hammer, the game was absolutely brutally dominated by To the Last. So is it To the Last? Is that what? Yeah, To the Last.
Yeah.
And so everyone was building an army with 3 really expensive pieces that can't be killed and then hiding them and getting 15 points. And it went from a third of the game doing it to 50% of the game doing it to 70% of the game doing it. And when I went to the Best in Tabletop Open in June, right before that went away, every single game I played, my opponent took To the Last and I took To the Last. Effectively, the game was ruined by the secondary. I don't hate you, Fictitiously Famous, unless you are yourself are an Imperial Knight.
In which case, we have lots of follow-up questions.
Yes.
And
I'd love to unpack that with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And as Gangrel points out, Stranglehold was the other half of it.
Oh, yeah. Stranglehold was like, what if I could just take one objective a turn to get 15 points?
Yeah.
So, yes, those missions had to go away. And so we got this new meta that brought back Necrons, whose book was the oldest book for 9th edition. Hold on.
Yes.
Very sorry, everyone. I'll be right back.
Okay. While Colin sneezes, we will discuss the importance of mission design in changing things. Oh, Fictitiously Famous is a Chaos Knight. I'm not sure I'm as excited for that because I would fail a dread test in real life.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So Necrons came back, and they came back because of points and because of all of their vehicles getting core, and also because their secondaries were amazing, and a bunch of the secondaries got rewritten, and Necrons were just like, what if I scored like 98 points, 97 points in the first 2 turns of the game? What would that be like?
It was an interesting question. I'm glad it got asked. I'm glad it's no longer being asked.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Necron thing is really interesting because at Charity Hammer, all the Art of War guys said loudly and clearly, Necrons are now the biggest problem. And you know what? They were right. They called it exactly. And Necrons immediately started winning and were winning at a rate that was unacceptable. The Biff TNG guys came up, and I played a bunch of games into Naj's Necrons and just was frustrated the whole time. Couldn't beat them with my Craft of Lullar, couldn't beat them with the Sisters of Battle. Just couldn't do it. So what's interesting about Necrons, though, is that they fell down kind of unrelated to their nerfs.
Yeah.
They already were dropping off aggressively from winning before the nerfs happened. And I think it was simply that the meta got stronger with new books, combined with the fact that people figured it out. Like the thing that Necrons were doing, they were doing exactly the same in every game. You walked up to the table and they said, I'm going to run Necron strategy B. And you'd say, okay, great. And then you would just play against them, and you'd learn what to do, and you'd build your list to deal with it. And Tyranids and Harlequins in particular kept rocking S tier, and Necron started to trail off. And I think that's just really interesting. I think that they did lose, the Silent King lost core, but that is a change, but that's not a big enough change to warrant the drops they've had in win percentage.
Yeah, and the Necrons were trailing down even before that happened. While Colin is sneezing, this will remind. I want people to remember, like the Nids and clowns, that's one bucket of broken. That's broken with data sheets. But the Necrons are broken with missions. And I want everyone to remember that and think about contextual power levels the next time we start complaining about the next broken thing in April or May. Just remember that things are really good inside of a context and try to understand that context.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the game has changed entirely. And now we are released. The release is that and now the Chaos Space Marine Codex comes out in July. This book is really interesting because I think this book is also too powerful at launch, but it didn't get immediate attention. People got attention, but it didn't immediately start winning, which is really interesting. I think that the book was harder to figure out than most. But when it did start going meta specific, it started wrecking. Even to this day, where Billy and I are still seeing tons of CSM wins from across the sea, over in Europe and England, and not here. Some here, sure. Certainly, Anthony Vanilla is a violent machine that will wreck you. But yeah, it's just a. I've lost my train of thought, Billy. Pick it up.
All right. So here's the interesting thing about Chaos Space Marines. I completely agree with you. They took a while to figure out, unless you were Anthony Vanilla or someone who listened to the wonderful hour and a half he did at Charity Hammer, talking to Chuck and Zach, where he outlined to within 1,800 points the final form that Chaos Space Marines would take. There are so many traps in that book that it's so easy to take bad things. There are 6 good data slates, and they're amazing. And Anthony found them instantly and told everyone about it. So if everyone started there, they would not have had that slow ramp up. But
it's true.
So this day, people still want to bring their obliterators, and I understand that they're lovely models and the dreams are wonderful. But
well, obliterators, as far as I know, have never been good.
Every other week, 3 obliterators show up in a list that I talk about on this show. Not in the top, not winning, but somewhere around 3rd to 5th place. There's some empirical
3rd to 5th place at a 30-person tournament. Woo.
There's empirical data to suggest that those 300 points could be better spent elsewhere.
That's fair. All right, so the CSM book comes out in July. Then we have nothing in August.
Mm-hmm.
But then in September, Chaos Demons. And Codex Flamer was okay from launch, but Codex Flamer has a problem where it's got like 4 good data sheets. And if you take any of the other ones, you lose.
Yeah.
So that wasn't great. I played against Mono Nurgle and Mono Slanesh like the first weekend it came out. And whoo, those were not good. Mono Slanesh is interesting, but it wasn't powerful. So there ended up being the list that Demons did that was well, which was like a Bloodthirster that was moon gated, and Be'lakor, and a whole bunch of Flamers, and some Bloodletters list, right? Yeah. And that's still really good, and it still does well. We don't see that outperform Flamers plus CSM, just in general.
Yeah.
I think Flamers and CSM are, 2 great tastes that taste great together. And that created a bigger problem. Like we're seeing Thousand Suns plus. One of the things we haven't mentioned, by the way, is through all of this, Thousand Suns were good. Like, not right great, not amazing, but just solidly good through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But then once people were able to add Flamers to Thousand Suns, they became real scary.
Yeah.
So supposedly, Flamers are going to have to roll to hit. Supposedly. One of the weirdest rumors I've ever heard. I don't understand at all why a thing called a Flamer would lose its ability to auto-hit rather than just raising them in points, which is, I think, what they actually need. Or maybe don't have them have 3 trillion shots per model. Like, there's a lot of ways around this. But anyways, Codex Flamer certainly shook up the meta. But I don't believe, let me say that differently. I believe that as good as CSM and Demons are, they are nowhere near launch Eldar, launch Tau, launch Tyranids, launch Custodes.
I might have them launch Custodes.
What's that?
I might have them near launch custodes.
Okay. Well, launch custodes were really offensively crazy. My point here is the rest of the meta was already aggressive.
Yeah.
So the problem isn't releasing a book that's too good. The problem is releasing a book in comparison to other books. And one of the things that I think is interesting about this is if I were picking a meta right now and telling you who I think the best armies are, I would say Knights and Chaos Space Marines and Tyranids and Elves and Tau, which are, by the way, all of the books that other than a few that have come out in the last 6 months. So I think that the thing with Chaos Space Marines that's saving us from them being uncomfortably dominant is they're still allergic to bullets.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a really efficient gun line or the ability to score points incredibly fast, I think that is just not enough. So that's my thought on Chaos Space Marines. Supposedly they're losing Armor of Contempt, which I think is a really big deal for them.
Yeah.
If they don't have appropriate rules to supplement that, I think that we're going to see them drop off pretty hard.
Yeah.
And then the guard book evidently didn't actually come out in 2022, so we won't talk about one of the most broken things to ever be released until later.
You're forgetting one book that, if we're talking, I don't know if it counts as released or not, but the most broken rule set that Games Workshop has ever put out into the pot that we get to deal with.
Yeah, how come Votan isn't on this list?
I don't know, but they should be.
They're sure not on this list.
Yeah.
When did Votan come out? It must have been after Demons.
It was after
and this
Demons.
list must not be updated.
Yeah. Votan was before Guards, whatever version of release they had. And Votan had their own version of, well, here's what the rules are going to be. And there are no models to play it with. So we have this sort of grace period to, oh my God, pull back just this stupid stuff.
And evidently effectively.
Yeah.
Naj won that major, but have we seen that? I don't think we've seen Votan win anything bigger than that 100-person tournament that Naj won.
That's true. There also they have come out, and the models, to the extent that there are models, have came out really as the amount of events has tailed down. And I think
that they're going to be a massive problem for the first 6 months of 2023, because I think they're going to dodge all the nerfs. Because they came out and there's no data on them. Yeah, and they're very, very good.
Yeah, they also got the most heavy-handed nerfs ever, because they basically just released a alpha playtest rule set into the wild, and people looked at it and were like, oh, so my 270-point model at 70% of the time drops a Warlord Titan. Interesting. Yeah.
I actually don't know how good Votan are now, so I'm really interested to see that. I've played 4 games against them, and I'm 4-0 by a wide margin. That could be that Votan's hard to play. It could be that, I was playing guard in one of those games. Like, there's any number of things that could be the case. Votan is probably the army that I'm the most interested to see how it does at LVO.
Yeah, my sense is between all of the rules and all of the points, there's maybe 1 or 2 annoying interactions still, but they feel like they're at 10 or 11 out of 10.
Like, well, and they're going to get to just ally without penalty with Space Marines, and there could easily be something there that's not okay.
For sure. But once ally stuff is in the wild, there are going to be so many unintended consequences, and I heartily commend people to think about, ooh, this is an excuse to buy and paint a fun model that I've never gotten to use before and try something enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Just if you have anything other than that mindset, you're going to be frustrated.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So now we're going to give our favorites of the year. So Billy, other than Yunari, because we can't just pick Yunari for everything, what is your favorite? Not that you necessarily that you played. What do you think was the coolest meta winner of the year? Like, what was the meta list that was the coolest?
The one that I certainly would have played if I had more bandwidth in my life was some version of that Emperor's Children list that Anthony came up with. I mean, that's exactly what I want to do. I actually have a sizable portion of it already painted. It had all sorts of fun. It had both objective power on the table and then like a litany of interesting tricks and ways to feel smart. And that's exactly what I like. So I was a big fan of that kind of army. Colin.
Okay. I'm not going to pick my Fire Prism list, even though I absolutely adored it. And instead, I will actually say Harlequins. Sure. They are way too good, but they feel very lore appropriate to me. It feels like the way that Harlequins would engage with you, right? To me. And then I'd give honorable mention to Tyranids, because I think that Tyranid armies look just like the lore, like you'd expect from the lore, like a mixture of medium and big and little bugs all like appearing at weird angles and rushing at you. Both of those books seem very lore, but they also were very fun armies to play. Yeah. So I played both of those armies at some point in 2022. I think they're both really fun.
Yeah. Well, let me really quickly just say something to that. I think that GW's gotten better at putting the power in armies in ways that make them look like armies.
Yeah.
And that's a nice thing.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Well put. What was the most awful to play against medalist of the year?
Personally, the first time I went up against 27 Leviathan warriors and 2 harpies, those are fun rules that you get to have.
Yeah.
I will keep a smile on my face for 2.5 hours, and we'll re-rack, and I'll figure something else out.
I bet it didn't take 2.5 hours for you to lose to that the first time, but okay.
We were talking a lot.
All right, fair enough.
It was more, wait, what is that rule? Wait, you have that and that? Wait, what? There was a lot.
I'm going to pick Necrons because as a T3 player, I found the mortals of the double Catan to be completely unacceptable. And so like Necrons were scoring a gazillion points against me while destroying my army with mortal wounds. And I really felt like that was I played 5 games or something, 4 games or 5 games against Naj in one weekend against Necrons. And every game was miserable. Awful. Just a terrible slog every single time. So that's my pick there. What was your favorite list that you played of the year? And we're both going to say Ynnari, so let's pick something other than Ynnari.
While the Hail list felt more powerful, just getting to put that Avatar model on the table made me happy. It brought my inner 12-year-old out. And the fact that the Avatar was viable. It wasn't good, but it wasn't an objective mistake to put it on the table. Just filled me with joy.
Yeah.
And spoiler, I think it might be okay going into the future, into the meta of the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't think he's durable. I know that he says he's durable. Like you look at the data sheet and he's like, I'm really durable. But then I put him on the table and he's like, no, actually, I'm just going to die.
If he can hide until you put fortune on him, he should be durable enough.
That has not been my experience.
Okay.
But we'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay. What forget?
Was yours? No, you didn't answer. What was yours?
Oh, Gene Stealer Cult by 1.5 miles.
Okay.
I think Gene Stealer Cult is actually one of the best written books they've ever had. I think that it has great internal balance. I think there's several different things you can do with it that are interesting. I think it's a gun book, and I don't appreciate that. That army needs to be more hybrid than that. And so I don't care for how it's all guns and the close combat isn't very good. But the book does give you fun things to play. Dudes in cars shooting at you, 20-man bricks of people dropping down and wrecking you with shotguns. Like there's a lot of the bike lists are cool. There's a lot of neat stuff in that book, and I've had by far my most fun, other than Ynnari, which was just a effing laugh a minute because of the wild speed and power of Ynnari. And jank that people just couldn't see coming. Yeah. But I like actually playing the Gene Stealer Cult the best of everything I played in 2022. And here's a brief list of everything Colin played in 2022. Sisters of Battle, Tyranids, Harlequins, Craft World Eldar, multiple kinds of Space Marines. I played two games as Necrons. I played Sisters of Battle. I played probably other stuff. Harlequins, just multiple Craft World Elder lists. I played 2 games as Drukhari, Guard. Mm-hmm. So I played a lot this year, and I think Genestealer Cult was the most fun. In fact, I don't care about my ITC score this year because I basically took the year off from competing. I went to some tournaments, but I missed a lot because of my personal life. And so I am going to go to a GT in Ellensburg, Washington, which if you take a picture of Washington, just pin the tail in the middle of the state, that's where Ellensburg is. Okay. I'm going to go to Ellensburg in 3 weeks, and I'm going to take Genestealer Cult. And I'm not going to take the bike thing because I don't own the 30 bikes required. So I'm going to take a more aggressive and less point counting to 100 Genestealer Cult list, and I'm really excited about it. It's going to give me some absolutely great insight to the game to play a thing that is quite powerful, but not the top thing.
Yeah.
So that'll be really fun. Okay. I Heart Genestealer Cult is a summary of what I just said. What else are we going to talk about? I said most obnoxious list opponent, most fun list opponent. Who did you most like playing against? For either because they were easy or it was interesting and fun or whatever.
Crap. I'm gonna forget. Give me a second to remember. I will reference his name after I look it up with Colin, but the first human being who ever recognized me solely from this podcast, I played against him in an event in, I want to say, late August, maybe it was early September, and he recognized me, and that was great fun. He played a Necron list that actually wasn't miserable to play against. He did the reanimating warrior bricks thing, and I'd only ever heard of that. And I killed 18 of 20, and then the next turn there were 17 of 20 warriors right there. And I went from, oh, you're tabled, to, oh, am I tabled? And I wasn't, but it was great fun. And I will look up your name really quickly and give you a shout out as soon as.
I am actually going to pick a specific matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And that matchup was Ynnari versus Emperor's Children. I think that game is so fun and so violent that I just really enjoy it. But if I'm picking a generic opponent that I like with all of my armies, I'm going to pick the Pink Horror Be'lakor list, which we didn't mention as we went through the armies. But for part of the year, we saw, really before the last change, we saw this Be'lakor list vomit out 120 wounds or whatever in its Pink Horror unit and just hold the table. Just, you'd kill the unit. You'd be like, I'm going to shoot the unit. And they're going to be like, okay, great.
Thank you.
I now have 1 million blues and brims, and they're all over the table, OBSEC on every objective.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a neat list that was so different from everything else in the game that I absolutely loved playing against it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how much we would have loved playing against that if that were the meta, but the fact that something like that is viable can be fun.
Yeah, for sure.
Christopher Plambeck is his name. He was a wonderful human being. I hope to see you more, Chris.
Plambeck. Okay, I'm going to give my favorite opponent of the year award.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not Chuck. Sorry, Chuck. Lou Rollins. I'm at LVO. I know Lou because he's won a lot of pain awards in the time that I've been playing 40K, and I've seen his armies, but I've never met Lou. And we get paired into each other at the team tournament, and God help him, that matchup was like the worst thing he could have hoped for. He had like 40 Marines, and I have a list that literally just kills Marine bodies. That's what it does. Mm-hmm. And we played this game where he just got brutalized by Ynnari, and the whole time he told dad jokes, and he was funny, and he was interesting, and he had a good spirit about it, and he tried his damn best from start to finish. And so my favorite opponent of all time is JT McDowell from Play on Tabletop. And that's because, again, he tries the whole time, and he's funny, and it's great the whole time. I'm going to give the JT McDowell Award for 2022 to Lou Rollins. That's
congratulations, Lou.
Yep. Congratulations, Lou. I hope that your friends tell you about this, that you listen, because I don't think Lou's a regular listener of the podcast.
Fair.
All right. That was our year recap for 2022. We could have done a whole bunch of statistics and stuff, but honestly, none of that matters. Like the meta isn't any of that anymore. So just a bit of a story for everybody, which was, I thought, fun.
And to my mind, all of those stats are to help us tell the right story. And
Right.
I think, and you and I are at least conversant enough that I don't think we were talking completely out of orifices that shouldn't be spoken out of. And so, yeah. And boy, as you said, none of that is going to matter as soon as these new rules drop.
Yeah. Entirely new game, which is weird because we've been told that we're being indexed in the summer, which will also be an entirely new game. So maybe the game just changes drastically every 6 months now. I don't know if I'm down with that, but that sure is what it looks like for the moment.
Yeah, it really seems like they're just turning everything up to 11. So put on your rain hats for broken stuff that is going to be frustrating the fourth time you play it, but try to find the fun the first time you play things.
Well put, Billy. I think we'll let that be the final thought for today. Remember, everybody, that January 3rd of 2023 is no different from December 31st of 2022, unless you want it to be. So join us for Better Human, Better Gamer tomorrow night at 5 o'clock Pacific. I promise you that it's going to be like nothing you've heard from a 40K podcast. I promise. Wait till you hear Colin's rules of being a good human. They're pretty spicy. They're not really that spicy. Don't take your shoes and socks off on an airplane. We'll start with that. I think that's a great rule. Anywho, for This Week in 40K, we'll be back next Tuesday to probably talk about tournaments, I would imagine.
So. I would hope.
He's Billy. I'm Colin because someone has to be, and we'll be back next week. We love all you guys. Bye now.
Bye.